Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Good to be here, and wow, standing room only. This is an important topic, I guess. My name is Sakina, as Mateen kindly introduced me. I have been in and around the Thai ecosystem for a long time. My current job is maintaining community health and growth at Twitch, which is an Amazon subsidiary. I have a fantastic group of panelists. I will just invite them to come join us here and do a self-introduction. I do have some questions for them, and let's take it from there. So, we have a pretty powerhouse panel, and so I'm going to hand off the mic to, let's start with you, Waqar, and do a little bit of introduction, and tell us something about what do you, as a founder, CEO, and potentially an investor, think about the opportunities for global India?
Thank you, Sakina. So I'm Waqar Hasan, and the best way to think about me is as a serial entrepreneur. I'm on my third startup. The first one was a database startup that completely failed. The second was a predictive analytics startup called Insights One, now part of Google. And the third, Zenda Financial, that I'm working on right now, was recently acquired by Income Payments. And in terms of what we do, we actually make a smart card. This is for healthcare payments, as in a Visa card. And the neat thing about it, it knows all the IRS rules. So it saves taxes for you without you having to know anything about it. So if, for example, you walk into Walgreens, pay with our card, and you buy, let's say, milk and Tylenol, it'll know that the Tylenol is tax deductible, charge it to your HSA. Know that the milk is not, charge it to your checking account, generate a receipt for you, no record keeping. So that's the kind of thing we do. Now, in terms of the relationship to India, we actually built our product entirely in India. So for us, India has been an awesome source of talent. And in fact, one of the things that we achieved that we can talk about later is we achieved zero attrition in 4 years of operation.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Madhu Shalini-Iyer. I am now a managing partner at Rocketship. Rocketship is a fund that's headquartered in the Valley. We are in Los Altos, shy of $300 million. We are investors. We are global investors. Before just introducing myself, I'll just say that we have a very close connection to India. We are one of the first funds to be sitting here in the Valley and not having offices in India that started investing in India in 2015. We have a whole huge host of companies in India that we have invested in, and we will continue to invest in India in a big way. We also, of course, invest in the US and Europe and every other place that you can imagine in the world. Some of our portfolio companies include Moglix, No Broker, Khata Book, Agnikul, India's first private space vehicle, which is going to be launching sometime soon, and just a whole bunch of other deep tech startups, B2C startups and B2B startups, and I'm excited to be here. In my previous life, before being an investor, I was also an operator and part of a lot of great startups that I've had the pleasure to be a part of from the founding stages. Gojek, which is Indonesia's Uber and Southeast Asia's Uber. I was the chief data officer and I was on the board of directors there. Grew it to $1 billion unicorn and then a decacorn, and then my colleagues took it public. And before that, I was, building startups in the Valley, and have been part of, many great stories that I've personally witnessed. And I'm here today because of the fact that India is a huge part of our portfolio, and I'm extremely excited about India.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kushagra. I'm founder and CEO of Key. I have a long career and been very fortunate to start 4 companies and also work in some of the largest companies during the evolution. I started my career at Google, spent about 8 years there, mostly in product, and then later in marketing and partnership roles. Had a chance to work with Sakina, which is super cool. Started a company with a friend of mine that was acquired eventually by Pinterest. Started another company right after that. That didn't do as well, but I ended up joining Verizon, ran a lot of small and medium business products there. Through the course of, as we were building these companies, I also realized how important community is, how important it is to have forums like these to gather together. One such forum for many of us here have been the ex-Google community. Through that insight, we ended up creating this new company that I'm just started in the last 7-8 months. It's Key. We are building a professional networking and community platform for like-minded people to come together and advance their collective ambitions. So thank you for the opportunity and look forward to the panel.
Hi, my name is Vinod Muthukrishnan. I built and sold a startup called CloudCherry to Cisco in 2019. And I've since realized there's great joy in doing more than one job. So after a brief stint at Cisco, I currently have 4 jobs. I'm with a pre-IPO startup called Uniphore, hopefully take them public. I'm a partner with March Capital. But the reason I'm here, I think, is more relevant is I'm the co-chair for US ISPF Startup Connect program, bridging startups in that corridor. And I think my proudest work is on the governing council of a founder paid forward community called SaaS Boomi, which I would like to think is the largest founder paid forward community, more than 250 pro bono founder volunteers, helping more than 3,000 SaaS entrepreneurs through every little tactical detail of building their SaaS and AI startups up. So thank you. I do appreciate it. Thank you. Now that you clapped, I'll have many things to ask off of you. So the next 30 minutes, please be ready. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Rakesh, Mathur. Waqar, who's at that end of this panel, and myself are probably the original gangsters here, right? I've been starting companies since 96. In 98, I started Jungly, which became part of Amazon, and I think led to a lot of startups here. Most recently, I'm the founder of a company called Fizz, which both Asha and Madhu are investors in. It's a social network born in Stanford. I backed 2 then Stanford sophomores. And they're looking at social media very differently. It's from the viewpoint of the fact that this is the loneliest generation. It's in the middle of we're in the middle of a mental health crisis, and what they lack most deeply is the ability to actually reach out to somebody and make friends. So that's now in the last 18 months or so since I joined them. We're our Series B, and we raised $45 million, and we're on 300 campuses. It's called Fizz, and it's doing very well. It can only be used if you have a Stanford.edu or a Berkeley.edu email. A company that I started with Birud Sheth is looking at doing an IPO, and we're going to do an IPO not here in the United States, but very interestingly, the most valuable IPOs are actually going to be done in India. So there's a whole wave that hopefully Madhu's investments. I am an investor in their fund, and I see Nishit Desai here, who's definitely going to be an important part of this journey. There's hopefully a lot of very high value IPOs ahead of us, which are companies pretty much born in India, either serve Indian markets or global markets. I think that sort of insane wealth generation that's going to be moving from New York to Mumbai is going to be a large, important part of our story overall.
Thanks. So I think, we heard some great stuff in the previous panel discussing about like policies and important stuff, like things that really matter and enable us to do the work we do. But what I really want from this panel is to understand, like, how do we take all of that and really make it tactical and something that we can actually make it actionable, right? Because there's a lot happening in the ethos, but like, how do you actually do it? And we have good point of views as entrepreneurs, investors, angel investors, LPs, founders in this panel. So I would like the question I want to ask is like, yes, the global India or the image of India is like, it's kind of doing is trending virally faster than a Bollywood blockbuster. But what's the masala ingredients that you've taken from there and applied it to your own startups, and what do you recommend that we need to do? Whoever wants to take this.
Okay, good question. And at some level, the former president of India, Abdul Kalam, made us all realize that the strength of India lies in an educated population. And to me, that's been the biggest thing. And it's not just educated population, but one that has learned computer science, knows English, and that's a huge asset from the perspective of any company anywhere else in the world. And if you look at, I actually Googled what's the production of computer science in the US versus India, and this is data as of a few years ago. The US graduates about 65,000 computer scientists every year. India graduates over 200,000, and China is much less than that. So I think that's the huge strength that actually turns it into that if you look to the future, then especially from a Silicon Valley perspective, it is that a collaboration with Indian talent anywhere in the world is one of the awesome ingredients that gives us that masala.
Great questions again. I think when I think about the rise of India, I feel it's a very personal story. I feel I grew with as India was growing. I grew up in a very small town, Jhansi, where the famous Jhansi of Rani was born. It's a very small town, very humble, God-fearing people. My mom was a government school teacher at Kendriya Vidyalaya. My dad worked in the government post office. We had a very comfortable life. My elder brother graduated from IIT BHU, now IIT BHU, and went to Bangalore, and I visited him. There were a lot of books around computer programming, and I was still in high school, and I read them, and I realized, oh, writing a website is not that hard. This coding thing is not that scary. And then when I started talking to a few people in Bangalore, they were willing to give me a chance. A lot of you created those businesses in India so that my generation in particular can just latch onto your success and grow further. I believe that, and Malcolm Gladwell said it the best, that success is not a random act. It arises out of a predefined set of circumstances and opportunities. I think as I'm growing up along with India, I think the circumstances are right, that it's very talent dense, high quality talent. The opportunities are coming from all corners of the world, particularly in the US. And then due to a lot of work that has been done by the previous generation, it just makes things a lot easier for people like me. So I think it's not just a story of a Bollywood blockbuster. I think as we tell our story, I feel that I'm actually living in this movie.
Yes. So I'll try to package this. I call it the 3 C's. Essentially, the first I think is culture. I think we all know India has had a deeply entrepreneurial culture. We've traded with ancient cultures millennia ago. But for the longest time post-independence, I think we had an environment which stifled the entrepreneurial spirit. Like, you're not supposed to be an entrepreneur, right? Be it taxation, be it rules, be it regulation, be it societal. How many times have you seen older movies which say, how do you lose your money? I invested in a business with my friend and usne dhoka de diya, and money is lost. So the business was supposed to be bad and evil, right? But I think culturally we were always entrepreneurs. So that culture, I think, is at the heart of what we do today. The next, I think, is community. Look at the diaspora here. The reason we're able to do SaaS Boomi is because there are folks here who've spent years working in large companies, small companies, building companies, who are now willing to pay it forward and say, I will help another generation of founders for no financial gain, right? Even if there's nothing wrong. The point is, you're willing to do it without. And I think the sense of community, when you write the book at SaaS Boomi, we have a slogan. I hope you appreciate it. We call it $1 trillion of market cap from India SaaS, right? That's our mission and slogan. And SaaS, because we don't understand other businesses, right? We only know what we know. So that can only happen when you write the book of that achievement. You look back and say that how many people in this room played a chapter, wrote a line, did something, right? And I think it's really important. But with the 2 C's, there's a third, I think, that was lacking for the longest time. I started my career in the Merchant Navy. And the biggest thing that was lacking with Indians was not the first 2s, it was the third, which was confidence. inherently we were taught to just be a little submissive, a little understated about our achievements. Don't talk too loud, don't brandish what you've done. And I genuinely feel in the last decade or two, it can be a mix of many, many factors. It would be the result of one generation of people like you in the room. I moved to the US 7 years ago, so I'm not a veteran here. But many of you came here 20, 30, 40 years ago and built the reputation for Indians as incredibly smart, talented, honest people, right? And I think that's given some sort of confidence to everybody that we can create world-class companies, world-class execs, world-class brands. And I will wrap up with today an incredible founder stepped down from his role. Girish, who's the founder of Freshworks, personal mentor to me. I was privileged to be at his IPO at NASDAQ. He said, I don't want to build, 10 years ago, anyone who's built software said, hey, hide that India part, make it look slick, get a copywriter from the US, make it sound American. He plastered made in India all over his product. And he said, I'm an Indian software company. I sell for the world. This is globally competitive software, and his IPO had India flags all over Times Square, right? So I think that pride, thank you, that pride about being Indian software, Indian company, that third bit confidence, now I think this is an unstoppable force. I don't think even if we tried, we can stop it.
I think this Bollywood movie you're talking about has actually been set when things like the IITs and all the educational institutions in India, things like the national labs, BARC, all these things were TIFR, which the Tatas created. It's been a long, it seems like it's just happening right now. But actually the foundation's been there for decades. I think government has had a role to play with it. Certainly talent. I mean, for our part, I participated in the first investment that led to the IIT Bombay incubator. And Vinod and I built a Gupshup there, and we got a bunch of companies there. So people are very smart. And I think the one thing that being in a difficult environment always has imposed is probably the word jugaad, right? We figure things out, man. So I think if you put all these things if you put all these things together, it's a combustible mix right now. But it's not a fast story. It's not like Gossip Girls, it just happened, okay? This has been going on for a long, long time. It's just finally coming into its own.
I think that's exactly what I wanted to add, is that not just the foundations, but even the startup foundation has been set a while ago, and now I think we might just be sort of on the inflection point of that curve. But it's been rolling even in startups for the last 10, 15 years. We had Flipkart start a long time ago, and then we had, then I think Geo happened, and things just got really accelerated. But this has been around for a long time, starting with the foundation, with all of the great institutions, but starting also with very early pavers in the startup environment that have paved the way for a lot of the folks now. And you're just sort of seeing the buildup of the acceleration.
Oh, that's absolutely incredible. I think we've, the foundation, many people here have contributed to that foundation. My husband reminded me yesterday that the reason we have brown CEOs so publicly is because of, TiE has played a monumental role in that. Otherwise, we would get here eventually, but it might have been a much slower path to that. So I think that's true. And I think you touched on themes of community and identity and driving confidence. And that's just it's beautiful to see today, because you didn't see it even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And it's really something that's empowering. And it's also great to see what's happening in terms of government legislation and government support back in India. And as one of the previous panelists talked about, not boxing India as a geographical location, but as really looking at the diasporas across the board. So with that question, I want to ask, in terms of, we have the world, the stage has been setting for a long time, and everybody thinks of entrepreneurship or startups or anything as overnight success. There is no such thing. That most people in this room know that. You talked about jugaad, and I wanted to see, if there's any concrete examples of jugaad mindset. Jugaad normally is associated with frugality, but I think what you just said about really figuring things out and getting it done, I think that's just such a big part of our ethos and just the way we operate as people. Again, not trying to stereotype, but most people do. And so I think this is something we can celebrate. So if there's any examples of jugaad that anyone of you want to talk about, I think the mic should be working, is what I've told.
this is about Gupshup. So we started, one of the things that happened, well, we pivoted a few times, but we were at one point in time, Gupshup was essentially like a Twitter, but it was entirely running on SMS. Because we figured that SMS was the thing we needed to do because it's ubiquitous in India. GPRS, things like that led to BlackBerry and so on were yet to actually take off. So it was very successful. That thing was growing 2% day on day, if you can imagine that growth rate. Okay. So what it led to was in 1 year or something like that, we were probably India's largest buyer of SMS messages, which between a seed and a Series A stage company was like really unfair. So then my good friend Ashish Gupta and a few other people, Devdutt from Charles River Ventures, etc., stepped in and they invested in the company, and we really figured that we can't keep going on this consumer path. So Jugaad, we somehow figured that the back end is what's going to be valuable eventually. So we were able to do a few rounds of funding and get to a stage where with great frugality, we stayed break even and more for a long enough time until, with all the hard work that the team led by Birujsher has done, in 2024, it's a very profitable, high-scale company which is started in 2004. So 20 years later, it's through a whole bunch of, you may call them pivots, but basically that's problem solving on the fly. Because the cardinal rule in the startup is don't die. You know, as long as you can keep on surviving, eventually the markets are going to lift and go your way. So
it's a great company. So I have a very tactical Jugaad story. I mean, you can call it Jugaad, whatever, but it's not me, it's somebody else. So there's a founder whom I help operationally, and then he also pitched his product to be sold at Uniphore. And then that deal was taking its own sort of time. And he used to keep calling me, help me with the deal. I said, okay, let me talk to the buyer and blah, blah, blah. Till one day he calls me. He's, I think, a few days before end of his quarter. And he says, hey, Vinod, I just want to give you an update. I said, cool. I thought it was our operational update call. And he says, look, so what I've done is, the account exec on your account, yeah, I put him on a performance improvement plan. And if the deal doesn't close this quarter, I'm going to fire him. I said, cool, thanks for the update. Then I hung up. And then I realized this message was not for him, it was for me, which is, if you don't help me close this deal by the end of the quarter, somebody else is going to die. So the amount of pressure he put on me, who's not the economic buyer, not a shareholder in his company, who's helping him pro bono to help close that deal, was more than the pressure the account exec felt, right? So that, I thought that was great. That was a case when entrepreneur saying, I'll do what it takes, I'll put pressure on who it takes to get my deal done, and he did get his deal done. So kudos to him.
Very proudly, we recently built out a team in India. We've hired about 20 people in the last 3-4 months. We built the team in Ahmedabad just because Bangalore is very competitive, thanks to all the VC money. Ahmedabad is very different. I'm not Gujarati. I've never been to Ahmedabad. And as I'm doing my engineering interviews, and one of the guys that I want to hire, you usually sell them on your vision. So that's what I did. Told him like how big this thing can become. This is up. And this person who we ended up hiring asked me a question. I was like, in Gujarati and broken Hindi, sir, wo sab to theek hai, par aap paise kaise kamaoge? Which roughly translates to like, I get your vision, but will you actually make money? And I told him, none of my VCs asked me this question, and I'm very proud that you did. And but that relentless focus on building a real business, that was a big lesson for me. It's probably not a lesson in Jugaad, but like that perseverance and the sincerity and honest to God truth that someone has to tell me to realize that yes, we are very lucky to have access to capital and resources, but at the end of the day, we are building a real business. So I'm a fan of Ahmedabad and that engineer ever since.
I think one of the best things that has happened in India in the last few years is that everybody is raising money on WhatsApp groups now. The first rounds happen in WhatsApp groups, and these are founders who are paying it back. And it's taken a lot of perseverance for these guys to get a community built. and to give back to the community. And it's not exactly an example of jugaad, but it's an example of the community that's very scrappy in nature. And there's just no dearth of early money in India now. Because all founders know these people and are founding, are helping them found companies, past employees and fellow students and another community that they've known that are capable. And so there's really no VC money needed in the very early stages. I think that's the best example of of jugaad, as you call it.
So, let me give the example from my side. As everybody knows, hiring is tough in India. Retaining is considered even tougher. And everybody tells you, look, you'll end up with 20% attrition. Somebody, a freshly funded startup, whoever will come in, make your people offers that are just way more. What will you do? So this was jugaad is really about unique insight plus frugality. That's really what it is. So when we set out to build Zenda, we were planning to put our entire engineering, and this was a huge concern. The insight we got was basically that you hire in Bangalore, and then you tell the person, you can go to your hometown. We'll still pay you the same salary. Guess what that does? It really ties them to you, and they are very, very happy with that change. The other thing that we did, which was again unique in terms of hiring, in India, everyone will tell you, people don't value equity, don't bother with it. We said we will actually do the same equity as we would do in Silicon Valley, and we discovered over time that people did value it, and it actually kept people with us even when the company was going through hard times. And the third was really just to develop, for us, a lot of trust and transparency with the people. And we explicitly told everybody, look, we'll teach you how to do your own startup, should you want to do that. And I think that's been one of the things that has kept people with us. They say, hey, look, we like to see they benefit from seeing it from, if you will, scratch to an acquisition, and then what's happening after the acquisition. So we've been very happy with that jugaad that led to essentially a zero attrition over 4 years.
Thank you. That's really interesting. I have so many questions, but I feel like every time this panel reads my mind. That's pretty amazing tech. So my next question was, what are some of the innovative financial models that you have observed in terms of investing? Early stage, Series A, and how does the global spotlight of India, how has that impacted both with funding within and funding across both sides of the corridor? So Madhu, maybe you can start on that.
Yeah, I think I touched upon this, the early stages. There's a lot of Indian founders who have been successful that are paying back, and really this idea of funding happening on WhatsApp groups and funding getting closed within 2 or 3 days of a group chat being started. I mean, that's really unique to India. Just an entire $2-3 million getting funded on WhatsApp. Doesn't happen anywhere else, I don't think. So what this is now that India, because of so many successful startups, there's a whole bunch of startup founders, and you can find them on there's Kunal Shah from Cred, there's the Zerodha guys. All of these people are now funding angel investing, in startups, and so there's a huge bunch of people, colleagues that have worked with these companies that go on and start companies, and so really there's an entire community around WhatsApp groups of people that have founded startups, of people that are now founding startups, and so all of the deals get done there. And they are basically connecting with each other, and it's an exclusive group, which all of us VCs want in on, by the way. And so this is how funding is happening now in India, in the very, very early stages. And so they don't really need to go out and and talk to micro VCs even, and they don't also need to bootstrap their companies. And so it's a very efficient funding model that's taken place in the last 2 or 3 years. startups. And it's becoming very rampant now. And so that I think is, on the early stage front. I would say that India has had some difficulties, talking about all great things, but some difficulties have been that there is a very big gap in Series B and beyond in India in the last couple years. And I think that needs to get fixed. There's a lot more international LP interest in India. There's a lot many more international funds that are trying to invest in India. India is where China was a few years ago, and it's really poised to create a lot of value. And with the IPO markets opening up, Rakesh alluded to an IPO that they are planning. I think the funding cycles in those Series B and beyond companies is also going to get rampant, and there's going to be a gap that's going to be filled, which we are all really hoping for. And with this international interest of LPs going to India, we really do think that it's going to be telling now. In the next 2 to 3 years is going to be telling for India, and we are really excited about it. You should add. Yeah, you should add.
So this is sort of much later stage than what Madhu was talking about. It's also something that the US from a government perspective should consider. Okay, basically, when a US company that was formed in the US wants to list its Indian subsidiary to go public, you've got to pay this exit tax, which is 20% of your market cap at that point in time. So if let's say you're a unicorn, you have $1 billion valuation, you've got to come up with $200 million, which there's investors that are interested in doing that because the premiums expectations is that high. On the other hand, like our company, Gupshup, 75% of our revenues aren't, well, more than that. Maybe most of our revenues are not in the US. So nothing is really, there is no damage to a US citizen. There's no reason for that type of extreme tax to be paid. So basically, US is falling backwards in this case, right? So it's at a different part of the evolution in terms of financing, but I think there needs to be some thinking, and maybe there's some people in this room that can do something about it. But it just seems like a very extreme penalty for no good reason. I just thought I'd mention that.
I completely echo what Madhu said. Like personally, even as part of a global community of ex-Googler, we have invested in north of 100 companies, many of them in India, and the way deal gets done is very symbiotic through community groups and channels, WhatsApp, Discord, etc. But there's a reason why this happens. There is a very simple filtering that happens when you're part of communities. What happens is that talent surfaces up, they are vetted, the background checks are much easier, you don't have to go into a whole deal cycle. There is inherent trust built in someone else's recommendation. So if Madhu and we are part of the same group, I'll trust that what Madhu is investing in. And I've personally been a benefactor of that, as well as an investor in many of similar startups. So I think that's a new paradigm that is certainly emerging in early stage investing, in how a lot of founders can get started fairly quickly in terms of going on their vision. The second thing which has happened is this between the US-India corridor. I often see that a lot of companies are being built in India, but US is the primary market. Of course, it's being the largest one. And even there, from market development, corp dev, getting business and client development, I think these groups are very powerful. So the notion of this community helping each other has been tremendous in unlocking access to capital, markets, as well as potential customers.
Thank you. We have a few minutes left, and I wanted to just have one question that I wanted to ask you guys is, in terms of we are as somebody you just mentioned about we are where China was a few years ago, right? So the spotlight is on us in India, the India diaspora, and what differentiates us, and how do we kind of protect that going forward, right? I mean, is from a policy injection of capital, all of that, but how do we protect that status that we have right now and help it grow?
No, again, I'll come back from the same thing. I told you I'll ask you for something. Thanks for clapping. So I generally feel, look, there's smart people everywhere, right? But the diaspora strength in tech in the US is unparalleled. I don't think anybody else has it. US, India, politically, militarily, strategically are in a good place, right? So all the tailwinds are with you. So the thing that I think really differentiates us, and hopefully will in the times to come, is just this paid forward that is cultural in nature, right? Of course, you can invest in a startup, you can be an advisor, you can take a board role, you can take a job. But the communities that help with not strategic stuff, not like motivational speeches here, but 6-hour tactical sessions on how to get your go-to-market funnel right, That's the kind of tactical help that I think can save a founder 6, 8, 12 months of experimentation. Right? I always say founders live in strategy and die in tactics, So our aim with SaaSBoom is only tactics. No speech, no fireside, no panel, no nothing, even though I'm sitting on a panel now. But the point is, when the founder comes into the room, he or she is just looking for tactical help. Close a deal, close a round, hire a sales rep. What should I do with something very, very tactical? So please come back and lean in and pay it forward to the community whichever you can. And I think that is the one thing we have that will set us apart from almost any other community.
I think Waqar started this panel by talking about the people of India, and I think there really is no other, there's really no apt ending, and I'll let everybody else also weigh in, but it really is the people of India. The foundation that we have been able to set with some of the great institutes and the talent that's come out of those foundational institutions like the IITs and just many, and it's the other thing that I want to say about India and investing in India, and I think a previous panelist had mentioned it. It's not just the Bangalores and the Hyderabad's and the Delhis that have great startups that are starting now. It's everywhere. It's small cities, it's tier 2, tier 3 cities now. And some of the best startup minds are coming out of there. So it's just transcends everything now. And it really just comes down to the people. And I think what is really required is not just India for the world, but India for India and that build. And that's happening in even defense, and that's happening in deep tech. We have a company, Urav Labs, that's just sort of out of thin air. We have water, and those water the water is bottled for the rest of India and hotels and whatnot. So there's just wonderful ideas and a huge market in India. And I just hope that the 7 trillion economy comes to fruition very quickly, and the regulatory frameworks for fintech and so on and so forth all stays. It's just a collective effort that starts with people bottoms up, but then also has a huge amount of impact with the governmental decisions, the policies, the regulatory framework, and just how the country does.
We have 1 minute left, so I just want to thank you for your insights and your time. It's really been fun moderating this panel, and thank you very much for being here.
All right.